welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video and welcome back to another unhaul. Today I have a lot of books to talk about that I am getting rid of. I recently reorganized my bookshelves. I will leave the vlog above where I featured all of that in it, but I did a huge clean out when I was reorganizing my bookshelves, just being really open and honest with myself with things that I am never going to get to and things that I just will never reread. As much as I like some of the books here that I'm going to talk about today, I just know that I don't have enough time in my life to reread books that I just don't have any interest in going back to their stories. I have so many books on my TBR that I still need to read, so I'm trying to be realistic with myself, and I got rid of a ton of books. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about it, and then if there are any books here that you think that I absolutely have to read that I'm getting rid of that I have not read yet, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. I can definitely pick them up on audio or ebook in the future if I decide to go back to them, but I think it's time to let go of some of these that have been sitting on my TBR for far too long. So first I'm going to start off with the books that I have already read. I've sectioned them off into genres just to make it a little easier to talk about them. These ones, some of them I have DNF'd, and that's the reason I'm getting rid of them. Others I have read and really enjoyed, but just don't see myself rereading, so let's get into those. Also, iced coffee is necessary because it's early in the morning and I'm tired. First one that I have here is Shipped by Angie Hockman. I can't remember if I read this one last month or this month. I can't remember, honestly, but I did read this one and I liked it. It was a solid read. It was a 3-star read. It was nothing too exciting or special or fun. But it was a nice time to read at the time of reading it. This one follows I can't remember their names. Henley, I believe. Henley and Graham. And they work at the same company and they're up for the same promotion. And they end up having to go on a work cruise to build a portfolio of how they plan on being the best at their position. And during that time, it's like a hate to love workplace romance. During that time, they end up falling for each other. And it was good. It was just very mediocre, and I don't see myself rereading it again. I had a good time with it. I'm glad that I read it. This one was a little bit of a disappointment for me though, because this was on my 5-star prediction list and I ended up giving it 3 stars, so it is what it is, but I'm glad I finally got to it. Up next we have an entire series that I read and loved at one point and did see myself rereading it, but I just think that I read so many other better books now that I've really delved into dark romances, so I don't see myself going back to these, and that is the Crossfire series by Sylvia Day. This is not in the right order, but I did read all 5 of these books like pretty much back to back in pretty much like a weekend last year, and I had so much fun with them. They are like an elevated 50 Shades of Grey. I've heard really good reviews about these, and I've heard really bad reviews about these. Some people love them, some people hate them. I happen to have loved them at the time, but I don't think that if I reread them, I would love them as much. They definitely have a lot of issues with them, and the writing is not the most spectacular. I actually have a lot of Sylvia Day books that I have picked up since reading the series, thinking that I would get back to her writing, but I just never felt compelled to do so. So I just don't think that I want to reread these. Good time when they were being read, just not now. And this one follows another workplace romance. It's a billionaire who owns the company and he ends up falling for somebody that works there. And it's a very messy series that follows them throughout the entire series. It has a lot of miscommunication and a lot of there's a lot going on in here, but I don't know if I would recommend it now. I don't know if I could say that, but I had a good time when I read it. And the last and final romance book that I have makes me so sad because this is a special edition and I thought that I was going to love this and I just didn't. And that is Inseparable by Saban Davis. This is a gorgeous special edition. It does have really beautiful sprayed edges. It's a hardcover. It is signed by the author. I got this one in a bell box and I really wanted to love this, but I just didn't end up liking it as much as I wanted to. I did read this one this month, so this will be a spoiler for my wrap-up if I ever decide to get around to filming those. But this one follows a group of 3 people. One girl, her name is Angie, I believe, and then you have Devin and Aiden, and they have been best friends since they were young, and they have this kind of bond together that makes them very hard to separate as a group, but Devin starts going down a really dark and dangerous path, and they end up splitting up their relationship, and now it's just Aiden and Angie trying to cope with the things that are going on in their life and the loss of their friend. But then something happens to the 3 of them that really breaks apart their relationship, and it's the aftermath of that and then coming back together. The thing I didn't love about this is it's set in a high school setting, which is not something that I particularly love, especially when it comes to dark, steamy romances. And this has a lot of trigger warnings, so please, if you're going to read this one, go into it with some caution. Definitely more trigger warnings than I thought, and I definitely should have looked it up. It didn't bother me reading it, but I was not prepared when I jumped into the story. And I just didn't end up loving the way that it panned out. I think that a lot of people will enjoy this. It just didn't work out for me. I have one nonfiction here. It's actually a memoir that I am going to get rid of. I've had this on my shelf for a really long time with the thoughts that I would go back to it because I really love these two people and the story was really beautiful, but I just don't see myself rereading it, and that is The Magnolia Story by Chip and Joanna Gaines. I absolutely loved Fixer Upper when I was watching it on HG. Is it Fixer Upper? Is that the one they do? Yes, HGTV, and I just have so much fun with them as a couple. I think they're so wholesome and beautiful and gorgeous, but I just don't see myself reading it. It was so beautiful at the time, and I remember crying reading this. I had a great reading experience with this book. I just don't see myself going back to it, so I'm gonna let it go. All right, let's talk about contemporaries. This is a mix of YA contemporary romances, mystery, thrillers, all that jazz. So the first one that we have here is Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. This is one that we read for a group book for one of the season-a-thons, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a fantastic book. It's one of the best books that I have read with bisexual representation, and I absolutely love the story, but I just don't see myself rereading it, and I think that somebody else could get a lot out of reading this book, so it doesn't make sense to keep it on my shelves when somebody else can enjoy it more than I can now. This is a really beautiful story about this girl who opens up like an advice column, not a column, but an advice system with a secret locker at her high school where she answers relationship advice. And then she has a kind of like love triangle between her best friend and this guy that she likes. But this is, like I said, really wonderful conversations about LGBTQI plus community in a general, but really good conversations about bisexual representation, and I loved it. But again, I think it would be better suited in the hands of a younger reader. Then we have The Night Swim by Megan Golden, another one that I really enjoyed, but I just don't see myself rereading. I think that mysteries are a one and done type of thing for me. Once you know the ending and who did it, it doesn't have the same appeal, and so I'm going to get rid of this one. I did really enjoy the audiobook of this one, though. This one follows a woman who runs a podcast, a true crime podcast, where she goes and investigates different cases that have been closed, and in this particular book, she is doing the trial on an open case that has to do with a rape that happened in this small town, but also simultaneously trying to uncover the mystery of this girl who drowned 25 years ago, and her sister believes that it was not an accident. So it was a lot of fun. It was very fast-paced, very gripping. I really enjoyed the podcast element of the story, but again, I'm not going to reread it. Even If We Break is one that I read this month as well, and I DNF'd it. It is supposed to be a YA mystery thriller, but the game aspect of this particular story just didn't draw me in. It was very RPG, is that what it's called? Role-playing type of thing. It's very like heavily focused on that, and that is not something that I'm into, and I just had no interest in it once I got into the story. I got about halfway and realized that I just did not care, so I decided to put this one down. This is actually the book that I picked up because it was my lowest rated book on my TBR, and I can see that I'm not the only one that didn't enjoy it, so that's unfortunate. Then we're gonna get rid of Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez, same author as Perfect on Paper. I didn't enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed Perfect on Paper. I thought this one fell a little bit flat for me. I didn't really love any of the characters or the story as a whole. This is supposed to be a Grease retelling. I thought that it was fine for that aspect. It's a queer Grease retelling, but I don't know. I don't really remember anything about it, and I read it last month, so you would think I would know something, but I really don't remember my reading experience at all, so that shows you that it just wasn't a book that's going to stick with me, so I'm going to let it go. Then we have one that I just finished just a few days ago, and that is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X. Sarpan. This is a gorgeous book, but it is just not something that I can see myself delving into again. It's a hard read, it's a harrowing read, it's a sad read, and that's the whole point of the book. I think that the author did a fantastic job at really showcasing a book like this, but I just don't see myself ever gravitating back towards it. This follows a girl named Lee, and she has just recently lost her mother to suicide, and she's really struggling and grieving her mother, but she thinks that her mother has turned into a bird and is telling her that she needs to go back to where her mother was raised, which was Taiwan, and learn things about her life there. But really, she spends her time there trying to track down this bird and figure out how her mother got turned into a bird, and it is a very interesting magical realism story that has a lot going for it. It's a really big exploration of grief and mental health and acceptance It's a very hard read. It's very sad, but I thought it was very, very beautiful and very well done. I didn't end up getting a full 5 stars just because the non-linear storytelling aspect of the story, as well as the magical realism aspects, made it hard for me to absolutely fall in love with the story, but I do think it's a great one and one that everyone should read. The next up, we have another mediocre read for me, and that is Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins. This one follows Daisy Winters. Her sister is engaged to the Prince of Wales, or sorry, the Prince of Scotland, and she ends up having to go to Scotland to deal with some media issues that are happening after her sister's engagement, and she ends up falling for one of the guys that lives in this very royal, wealthy lifestyle. So it was okay. I don't see myself going back to it at all. I didn't love the second book in this series either. They were both 3 stars for me, so definitely not ones I need to keep on my shelves. One that took me a long time to decide that I needed to get rid of it, and that is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. And the reason I held on to this for so long is I think it's a fantastic queer book that deserves a lot of recognition. But I think there are also a lot of other ones that are told about, you know, the same things that are better suited for today's audience. So I don't feel like I need to keep it. Also, this could be something that can be read by somebody else and they can take a lot from it. I don't need to keep it on my shelves, but I don't really go back to recommending this one as much as I thought that I was going to, which is why I kept it for so long, and I don't see myself rereading it. I've also decided to get rid of the rest of the books in the series that I had on my shelves as well, which you will see a little bit later, but yeah, just not one that I need to keep on my shelves. Another LGBTQI plus book that I'm getting rid of, and I think it's mostly just because I'm growing out of my YA contemporary era. I don't read very much of them. I literally only have 2 shelves left of YA contemporary that I have not read, and I don't see myself getting to them anytime soon unless I'm really, really in the mood. And again, this is a fantastic, fantastic lesbian story that I think that would be better suited in the hands of younger readers that can get a lot out of this. I loved it when I read it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I think it's a fantastic story. I just don't need to keep it. This one and The Night Swim are very much on the same page for me. I really enjoyed Sadie by Courtney Summers. I thought that it was a fantastic YA mystery with the podcast element. I thought that it was really well done, but I don't see myself rereading it. I think the ending was a little bit more ambiguous than I was hoping for. And again, it's a mystery. I know how it ends. I don't see myself getting back to it. Another one that goes along the same lines as She's Too Pretty to Burn. This is a YA mystery thriller Dorian Gray retelling, and I had a great time with it. I thought that it was a fantastic, fast-paced, fun mystery thriller with a really crazy ending, but I just don't see myself, again, rereading it, and it's not like one of those books that's going to get a next book in a series, so I don't see myself going back to this one, so I'm gonna let this one go. Finally, the last for the contemporaries is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. This is another one that I thought that I was going to keep for a really long time because I think this has a wonderful exploration of OCD and anxiety. One of the most accurate representations of my own OCD and anxiety that I experienced in my own life, which is something that was very hard to read but also very powerful to read. I think it's a fantastic book for that type of representation. I don't think the actual plot and storyline of this book is all that fantastic or groundbreaking, but the representation is just so well done that I thought I was going to keep it for a long time. But again, I just don't see myself going back to it. I think of it with fond memories, and I think that it's a fantastic book that a lot of people should read. I just don't need to keep it. And finally, for the books that I have read, I'm going to talk about fantasies. The first one that we have here is a middle grade, and that is The In-Between by Rebecca K.S. Ansari. This is one that I read and absolutely loved. I thought it was such a fantastic mystery, thriller, fantasy middle grade. I just had so much fun with this one. This one follows a boy named Cooper who lives across this really, really creepy, like, rundown house, and he keeps seeing this girl that supposedly lives across the street, and one second she's there, one second she's not, and there's a big mystery surrounding this house and this girl, and it's him and some friends as well as his sister trying to discover the mystery of this girl and this house. It was so much fun. It definitely takes a fantastical spin towards the end, which I had a lot of fun with, but again, I don't see myself getting back to it. Then we have one that I'm sad to let go of, but I think I just needed to be honest with myself, and that is Alessia and Atlantis. This is by Natalie Lane. This is one that I was sent very, very kindly from the author to do an honest review, and I had tried to read it several times and I just couldn't get through the story, so I decided to officially DNF it. I didn't mark it on Goodreads or anything just because I don't think that this was a book problem, it was a me problem, and I just wasn't invested in the story, and so I decided to let it go. But I think that this could be really loved by a lot of young readers. It is self-published, and it has a lot going for it. It just didn't work for me. Then I'm getting rid of 2 books in a duology, and that is These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. These are both signed, and they are both exclusive editions through Owlcrate, but I just don't see myself ever rereading these. I didn't really enjoy my reading experience of the third book as much as I wanted. The second book as much as I wanted to. I gave this one a 4-star and this one a 3-star. They were a good time. I just didn't get as much out of it as I wanted, and this really took a turn in the way of writing that just didn't work for me overall. So I'm gonna get rid of these two. I feel really terrible because they're gorgeous and I absolutely love the under the covers. They have beautiful art underneath as well. They're really gorgeous, and of course they're both signed, but I don't need to keep them. All right, speaking of signed special editions, I have Book of Night by Holly Black. I don't remember which book box I got this from. I ended up getting 3 copies of this, and then I tried to read it and I soft DNF'd it, so I definitely don't need 3 copies. I don't even know if I will ever really go back to this one. I did keep 1 copy on my shelf. 1 I'm getting rid of and giving to Clint, which is in my closet, so I didn't include it in this, but just know I'm getting rid of 2 of these, and then this one as well. So I love the designs on this. I think that they are absolutely stunning. I just didn't end up loving it. It is, of course, signed. It does have some black sprayed edges as well as some really cool end papers and things like that, but again, I don't think I'm going to get back to the copy that I actually own, but I'm keeping it just in case I decide to change my mind, so I definitely don't need a duplicate copy. And the last and final book is a book that I just recently DNF'd this month, and that is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This one really was saddening to me because I wanted to love it. It is a YouTube classic, a BookTube classic, but I just didn't like it. I didn't care for the characters. I was halfway through and I had no interest in the story whatsoever, so I just didn't want to continue with it. And I've heard that this is very character driven, and maybe I'm just not a character driven reader, although I do love a good character driven story, so I don't know why I didn't love this one. It just didn't work for me, which is unfortunate. I feel really bad about this one because it's such a beloved series. Also, I probably should get rid of what is the other book? Call Down the Hawk that I have, because it's in the same series, but alas, here we are. All right, now let's move on to the books that I haven't read. This is going to be a much quicker section because I'm just going to fly through them to show you what I have, why I'm not interested in reading them, and move on. All right, sorry if the angle changed. I had to readjust my setup here because I have a lot of books that I need to talk about, but let's go ahead and just get through this very, very quickly just because I have not read these, so I don't have a lot of thoughts on them, but I did section them off into genres again, so let's get into it. I'm going to talk about sci-fi fantasies first, so let's do that. First one that we have here is an arc that I picked up, and that is The Last True Poets of the Sea by Julia Drake. Don't know anything about this one, honestly. I have never even heard anybody talk about it, so I don't really have any thoughts. I just don't think I'm going to get to it. Same thing with this one. This is Each of Us a Desert by Mark Oshiro. This is LGBTQI+, if I'm not mistaken, but again, I'm not going to get to it. It is an arc, so I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it, but I'm gonna let it go. Then we have Magic, Dark and Strange by Kelly Powell. I kept this one on my shelves because it was short, not really because I had really any interest in reading it. I did pick this up used at the bookstore at one point, and I'm just not gonna read it, so I'm gonna let it go. Then I have the rest of what I own of the Shatter Me series by Taharu Mafi. I don't see myself going back to the series. The first book was okay, but I don't have any inclination to pick up the rest of the books, so I'm going to get rid of them. Then I have a DNF, and that is The School for Whatnots by Margaret Peterson Haddix. I should have put this one in my red section. I don't know why I didn't, but I DNF'd it, so I'm going to get rid of it. Then we have the rest of the Maze Runner series by James Dashner. This author is not a great person, so I don't want to continue to talk about them on my channel, as well as I read the first book and had no inclination to pick up the rest of the books in the series, so I'm gonna let these ones go. I do have quite a few Al Crate Jr. books in here, so they do have signed book plates, or they're signed, so that's really cool. But this is The Unforgettable Logan Foster by Sean Peters. I just don't see myself reading this one. I don't really love superhero books in general, and I don't really care to read a middle grade one, so I'm gonna let this go. Then we have 2 books in a duology, and that is Mirage and Court of Lions. I don't know why these covers are so different, but I did pick them up at the same time at the bookstore, and I just don't see myself reading them, so I'm gonna let them go. Another Al Crate Jr. book, and that is Escape from Atlantis by Katie O'Hearn. This is just not something that I see myself reading anytime soon. Al Crate is something that I get sent for review, and I really appreciate them sending me the books, but sometimes they just don't work for me. Just like any book in a subscription box, it could work for you, it could not, and this is just not one that I want to read. Then we have one that was a gift for my birthday, but I just don't see myself ever getting to it, and that is Tiny Infinities by J.H. Dale. This just looked like a really cute middle grade, that's why I added it onto my TBR, but since then I just lost interest, so I am gonna get rid of this one. Then we have Unicorn Quest. This is by Camilla Benko. This is one that I picked up at the bookstore on a whim one day because it was gonna get donated. I don't need to read it. Same goes for the Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris, another one that I just don't have any interest in reading. Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. I'm actually reading a Claire Legrand book right now. I'm reading Furyborn as a reread, but I just don't see myself getting to this one. It doesn't seem like it would be my vibe, so I'm gonna let it go. I'm getting rid of my duplicate copy of Only a Monster by Vanessa Lynn. This one came in an Al Crate box. I do have my other copy right here. It has the beautiful purple sprayed edges there, but I don't need 2 copies, and I don't think I'm gonna end up absolutely loving the story anyways, so why keep 2? In my last haul, I actually hauled a book from this series, maybe two, but I'm not going to read them, so I don't know why I did that. And that is the rest of the books that I own, at least, of the Fallen series by Lauren Kate. This is a series that I read when I was in high school and wanted to reread, but I just don't see myself gravitating towards this series anytime soon, so I'm going to let these books go. I decided to get rid of Mr. Impossible. I thought I owned Call Down the Hawk, but I don't. This is now a Crate exclusive edition that I was sent for review, and I never got around to obviously reading the first book, and I just DNF'd the Raven Boys, so I don't see myself ever going back to this world, so I'm gonna let this go. And the last fantasy that I have is inked by Alice Broadway. This is another uncorrected proof that we couldn't sell at the bookstore, so I took it home, but I just don't see myself reading it. It sounds like a very interesting story, but I'm not being gravitated towards it, so I'm gonna let it go. I have some contemporary books, so let's talk about these. The first one that I have here is The Love Curses of Melody McIntyre. A lot of these are YA, just because like I told you before, I'm not reading a lot of YA contemporary, so I'm going to let this one go as well. This is one that I picked up at the bookstore because it came with a letter from the author, as well as some really pretty under-the-cover dust jacket situations going on, some art and things like that, but I'm just not going to read it. It is queer. Definitely could be read by somebody that would enjoy it more than it's sitting on my shelf and collecting dust, so I'm gonna let it go. Then we have some books that I picked up at Y'all West as ARCs, and I'm not gonna read them. One is Twice as Perfect, then we have We Deserve Monuments and Finding Jupiter. Again, these are YA contemporaries. I'm not gonna read them, so I'm gonna give them to somebody that hopefully will enjoy them. Then we have two books in a duology, and that is Letters to the Lost and More Than We Can Tell by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the author of A Curse of Dark and Lonely, and Defy the Night, and I really enjoyed the series A Curse of Dark and Lonely, but I just don't see myself getting to these contemporary YA novels. We were supposed to read them as a buddy reading group back in January, I think, with Mel. Her group read it, I didn't get around to it, and then I just realized I wasn't interested, so I'm gonna get rid of these. Then we have Leah and the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. This is part of the Simon-verse. I have not read this one, but I don't feel like I should keep it, so I'm gonna let it go. Another book that I got at Y'all West, and that is The Stars Did Wander Darkling. This is a middle grade horror. But not something I'm going to read, so goodbye it goes. Then we have The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson, another one that I've had for a really long time and thought that I was definitely going to read and then just never picked it up, so it's time. We have another middle grade, and that is The Elephant in the Room by Holly Goldberg Sloan. This is another one that I got in Now Crate Jr. I believe it does have a signed book plate in here, which is great, but I don't see myself reading it, so I'm letting it go. Two books by the same author. I'm getting rid of both of my Christina Forrest books. One of these I got in a subscription box. The other one I picked up used at the bookstore. But again, don't see myself reading them, so I'm gonna let them go. Then we have Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. This one sounds really cute, but again, not reading my contemporary. I love the names of these two characters, Pepper Jack, and it's about a grilled cheese debacle, which sounds really cute, but I just know I'm not gonna pick it up, so it's time to go. My last two contemporaries, I have American Royals. I've had this one on my bookshelves for a very, very long time and have had no inclination to pick it up, so I just know it's time to let it go. And the last one that I have is Heiress Apparently by Diana Ma. Again, one that I picked up used at the bookstore and don't see myself ever getting to, so it's time to let it go. I have a few mystery thrillers that I'm not going to get to. The first one being The Silent Wife by A.S.A. Harrison. I don't read a lot of mysteries, and this one isn't calling to me, so bye-bye. In an instant, I picked this one up, and I don't know why, because I own it on Kindle, and I don't need a physical copy of this, so I'm going to let it go. And finally, we have The Memory Watcher by Minka Kent. I have read a Minka Kent book in the past, and I didn't love it, so I don't see myself getting to this one anytime soon. I think I picked it up because the cover was really pretty, and not a good excuse to keep it on my shelves. And finally, my last section is romance. The first one that I have here is The 2-Date Rule by Tanya Fensky. I read this one in a Try a Chapter tag a long time ago and was really interested in it, but I have not picked it up since, and I think that Try a Chapter tag was over 2 years ago, so I'm gonna let this one go. Then we have several books by Maya Banks. I picked this author up thinking that I would really enjoy her work because she was compared to Sylvia Day, which I read the Crossfire series by Sylvia Day, but I have yet to pick up any of her works, and I don't see myself ever getting to them, so I'm going to let go of this series. Speaking of Sylvia Day, I'm letting go of Afterburn and Aftershock. Like I said, I read the Crossfire series and was like, I need to read everything she's ever written, and I've never picked up another book, so letting it go. I'm getting rid of two Kristen Proby books. They are books in the same series, and this is the With Me in Seattle series. I have Dance With Me and Forever With Me. I've been reading these on Kindle, and I don't gravitate towards the physical books for this series, so I don't see the reason to keep them, so I'm gonna let these ones go. We have two E.L. James books. I have Grey and Darker. These are the first two books in the series told from Christian Grey's perspective. I'm never gonna get around to these ones again, so I'm gonna let these ones go. And the last and final book may come as a surprise, but it's just because I can read these ones on Kindle, and I don't need to buy the rest of the series, and it really bothers me to have one book in a series but not all of them, so I'm gonna let this one go to save myself a little bit of extra money, and that is There's Ever After by Katie Robert. I am a huge Katie Robert fan. I absolutely love her works. I think she's a fantastic, smutty author, but this is, I think, the third book in the series, and I don't need this on my shelves. So I'm gonna let it go, and I'll just read it on Kindle. All right, that's everything. That's all of the books that I'm unhauling today. It was a lot of them. I am proud of myself for getting rid of so many, but now I literally have a huge mess on the floor. Like, look at this. But it is okay. It is all right. I'm excited to have some more space on my shelves. I have so much extra free space. It's honestly so awesome to have all this potential of things that I could buy. I need to stop buying books, but I could buy them. I will be doing a haul very, very soon, so don't worry. I'm filling the shelves. I'm just getting rid of some too. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. If there's some that you think I absolutely have to read that I can pick up on Kindle or audio, I will definitely try to give them a go. But that is the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Baby, turn it down.